is National Heatstroke Prevention and Awareness Day. So a lot of advocacy groups and the U.S. Department of Transportation are coming together to raise awareness through social media about the dangers that children are faced with if they get into a hot car on their own or are left in a hot car for some reason.
Okay, so obviously we know what tragedy can happen. So tell me what some of the numbers that you can share with us are.
Well, since we've been tracking data since 1990, we have documented over 800 cases where children have died in a hot vehicle. And we see on average 37 children per year, which would come out to about one child every 9 days. This year so far, 30 children have died, including 2 over the weekend, which is on about a 20% increase over last year. So our education efforts are very much needed, but we also are focusing on a technology solution. And in fact, today, the U.S. Senate introduced a bill to go along with a bill that was introduced in the House in June about the Hot Cars Act of 2017, which would serve to require technology on a vehicle to alert a driver if a child or even a pet has been sensed in the back seat after they've turned the car off. So, just like we have reminders that you may have forgotten to turn your headlights off or taken your keys with you, this could be life-saving technology.
Well, tell me how this would work. Obviously, it would notify you when you're out of the car and in the store or at work or whatever, right?
Well, we've seen so many different inventions and products coming to market already, either aftermarket products or even now GM has included what they call the rear seat reminder system, where if you've opened the door within 10 minutes of starting your vehicle, then when you arrive at your destination and turn the car off, you get a very unique chime, different than all the other alerts in your car, and a printed message on the dashboard that says, reminder, check the rear seat. So this is a step in the right direction. The auto manufacturers are acknowledging that our brains are human and they can fail us. And it's a matter, people ask all the time, how could you possibly forget your child in a car? That's your most precious cargo of all. Who would ever do that? The reality is it happens to loving, caring parents, and it's a matter of the autopilot, the most reptilian part of our brain, kicking in and taking over when the brain is under stress. And parents of young children know how stressful it can be and how fatigued you are after being up all night. And when people ask me about tips and pointers, which I can certainly share with you and your listeners, the most important tip that we tell people is that parents should never make the mistake of thinking this can't happen to them. It doesn't discriminate.
Do we have any numbers for Montana?
I just looked it up, and thankfully there have only been 2 in Montana, but it's 2 families too many because in the vast majority of the cases, it's a parent or another close relative who is responsible for the child, and the child wasn't dropped off at daycare or was somehow unknowingly left in the vehicle. So luckily it's a low number, but another really important point I'd like to make is that it does not have to be a very hot day for a child to die in a car. In fact, last year in January in Georgia, we documented a case where the high temperature only reached 52 degrees. But due to the greenhouse effect, the cabin of the vehicle heats up very quickly, and a child's body overheats 3 to 5 times faster than an adult's.
Gotcha. Okay, so what should we do? What should our listeners do?
Well, first of all, we want to make sure that drivers know, not just parents, all drivers, to keep cars locked at all times in the driveway and in the garage, and keep keys out of reach of children so that they can't get into a vehicle. And if a child does go missing, the same way you would check local bodies of water, you want to check all the vehicles in the neighborhood to make sure a child hasn't gotten trapped in a hot car. And at the risk of stating the obvious, unfortunately, we still have to remind parents it's never okay to leave a child alone in a car, not even for a minute. And in terms of the unknowingly situations, have a call-in system with your daycare provider that if your child doesn't arrive at the scheduled time, that they will call you and make sure that the child hasn't been left behind in a car. And make sure that you put something in your back seat, even if you're not the driver every day for daycare, get into the routine of putting your handbag or your computer bag on the floor behind the driver's seat, and that forces you, every time you arrive at your destination, to be in the habit of opening that back door. We call that look before you lock, and every parent should be doing that.